Hey everyone, I'm Ron Bonk. I run SRS Cinema, distributor, producer, director. I'll just have these guys introduce themselves real quick.
I am Mark Polonia. I'm an independent filmmaker. I've been producing films for the home video market since 1987.
I'm Hugh Gallagher. I made Gorgasm, Gorotica, and Gore Whore, and I ran Reculina Publishing for 15 plus years.
I guess we're gonna talk about making, disturbing underground movies. On this panel, is there any filmmakers here, by the way? Can you raise your hand? No. Oh, okay. Cool. Have you made disturbing movies, or?
Well,
Could be. Mine haven't been, like, these guys tend to make more gory type disturbing movies. We're so salty with Todd Sheets here, might end up popping in. Mine have tended to be less gory, but more psychologically disturbing. But how would you, I'll let you guys describe yours, even though I kind of, go ahead.
I think when I got into the market, to make a really graphic horror movie, at that juncture, that was your only shot at getting something released, getting noticed. So I think I chose that route because of that. Now, the first film I made that was released nationwide was called Splatter Farm. And it's a pretty disgusting movie, a lot of graphic violence and such. That's not the typical movie that I make or have made since, but at the time, the video industry, the home video industry was burgeoning, so you sort of had to tailor what the market would take. At that time, I would have preferred to have shot a science fiction movie, but with little or no money, a gory horror film was about the only route you could go, and it worked, but it wasn't something I consistently stuck with. I would occasionally go back to it, but that would have been the reason I picked that subject matter at the time.
I just like gore. I made Gorgasm. It was kind of tame. I was trying to break into the distribution, and people kept telling me what to do, and I kind of made that, and it was kind of lame. And I mean, I like the movie, but it's the tamest of the three. Gorotica, which is about a necrophiliac that takes a body, and it's funny because Joe Bob Briggs reviewed the movie, and he said it's the only movie where the person dies in the first 10 minutes but lasts through the entire movie because she keeps having sex with it through the whole movie. And Gore Whore is probably the goriest of the three. It's really graphic, and that's what I really wanted to do, is get something really graphic. But all my movies had a story. That was the one thing I always worried about, because most gore movies don't have a story. They're just showing gore. And all my movies have a story, which is really important to me.
Now, you guys out there, do you have a favorite gore movie? It can be, one of ours, or is there a particular one that you guys found disturbing from the underground or otherwise? No? Any specific questions before we go on and chat? Because we can keep talking to each other up here if you... No.
Well, I'll mention it. It's kind of funny how the independent scene is often way ahead of what Hollywood's willing to do, or
you
really
touched on it earlier. I was going to try to get to that.
Thinks about doing, because you have like Hostel and Saw. They're $1 million productions, but they're really just mimicking a lot of and they may not have seen our movies, but it's the same thing we did. They're just doing it with a lot more money, bigger stars, and it's acceptable. But had we projected one of our movies on a screen like that 20 years ago, we'd have probably been, well, we wouldn't be sitting here right now in front of you talking. But I just think it's funny how independents, not only us, but other independents, are usually a decade ahead of what Hollywood is willing to do or would find acceptable. Because 10 years ago, a movie like Hostel would not have probably gotten released.
And these not from a studio, but I mean, I've noticed that years ago, like all sorts of subject matter that the undergrounds aren't afraid to attack. Like, there was movies, gay and lesbian subject matter, HIV, all that stuff was in, movies, independent movies for years. These movies were touring the film festivals, winning awards and stuff. And then, Philadelphia came out, and it was a mainstream, movie about AIDS, and Hollywood was basically patting themselves on the back for doing it and stuff. But yeah, I mean, the underground movies were doing it for years. Now, in a case like Hostel, Eli Roth was probably a fan of, low-budget gore movies. Not necessarily ours, but anyway, I mean, from the 70s, there was tons of low-budget horror gore movies. made on film, for budgets of $100,000 on up, that he could have been a fan of and wanted to make, the big budget version of. So, but yeah, I mean, independent movies are definitely a testing ground, and you have that freedom, as an underground filmmaker to make what you want to a degree. Like, I make what I want and basically release it through my distribution company and don't have to worry about that. You guys might find, I know Hugh, you're basically a self-distributor too though. You might find, Mark, you were making stuff that you could only go so far with because you were trying to get national distribution off it.
Right. Yeah, and occasionally I get hired to produce films for other labels, and your vision's squashed even more because now you're held accountable to the standard of the people distributing it, and oftentimes you'll submit a script, they'll agree to it, and then 2 weeks later they want to change something that's just totally ridiculous, and but you have to because you've committed to this. You don't have that freedom. Hugh probably couldn't have made Gorotica or anything like that for a distributor because no one would have probably touched it, but that was his vision and he has the right to make that, and there's people that obviously are interested in it because he's sitting here with us right now.
Well, I made Gorgasm with the idea of getting a mainstream distributor because I was kind of associated with Donald Farmer, who made a lot of movies, and he, I didn't trust anybody. Everybody came up to me with deals, and I just knew I wasn't going to get paid, so I finally said screw it and just did it myself. But I had Draculina Publishing. I published a lot of magazines, and I could sell all my stuff in the back of magazines. Plus, I was hooked in with comic distributors, and I actually ran my movies through comic distributors, and believe it or not, what I sold on that got back my budget on every one of my movies just through comic distributors, because they sold really well.
Diamond was a great buyer. I always wanted to get my movies through Diamond because they were guaranteed 200, 300, 500 units if Diamond picked it up.
Capital was even better. Capital would pay you 50%. Diamond, they suck because they only pay you 40%, and you had to pay shipping, you had to pay everything. If they didn't like something, they just send it back. But Capital was a lot better, but obviously Diamond ran them out of business.
One of the big things is, I mean, a lot of underground filmmakers will come to me and be like, I want to get into Walmart and stuff like that. And they think Walmart is the big, mecca and stuff. And it could be better today, but I remember back when I had the option, my company selling to Walmart, and it doesn't happen anymore. They just ran out of shelf space for the real low budget stuff that I sell. Same with Best Buy. We used to be in Best Buy a lot. You ran the risk of Walmart getting your title in, and say the first 2 weeks they didn't move as many units as they wanted to, they'll send all the units back. So I think there was a football TV series, I think it was an HBO series or something like that they ordered. Like, you can't hold me to these numbers because it's been so long since I heard the story, but I think they ordered something like 100,000 units of it. This is, I think, back even in the VHS days. And they sold maybe 5,000 the first week and 4,000 the second week, something like that. And they were unhappy when they sent 90,000 units back. And it was something super extreme like that and basically killed the company. So there was always that risk. So, we were better off, in a sense, staying in the underground. But when you're in the underground, to get these fans to pick it up, sometimes you do have to be extremely graphic with these movies, especially me as a distributor. Even right now, it wasn't happening for a while, but it's kind of come back. Extreme underground horror movies are really hot, especially like when you're doing like the VHS limited edition releases. They'll sell faster. For a while it was the shot on video stuff. The old shot on video stuff seemed to be the hottest, and that's kind of cooled off. But these extreme underground horror movies, that's the movies that they're picking up more than anything.
It depends on what kind of audience you want. A lot of people want to see their movie seen by everybody. They want to see it in Walmart, whether it sells or not, they don't care. They just want to see it in Walmart. I didn't really care about that. I wanted to get the movies out. I was like inspired more by movies like Nick Zed and really weird underground movies, and I like that kind of stuff. And so I wanted to put something out there kind of on that level. And all my movies made money. They did really well, and it was basically all from me. And Ron sub-distributed some, and so did Film Threat and a few other places.
And you even talked about the foreign markets when even in the U.S. Where a movie like yours or like the Necromantic movies, something like that would sell pretty good in the U.S., they were hotter in Europe. Did you find that too, Mark? Were you selling foreign deals? Because like Germany was buying the most extreme gore movies they could possibly find.
I never had much luck in the foreign market with the extreme gore, but other titles I have. I just never really pursued it at that point, so I really can't say. But didn't you Didn't you produce a bunch of movies that foreign buyers requested of you?
Well, this is I was gonna touch on. We started doing these movies with Eric Stanzi under the Sub Rosa Extreme line, and he was producing and/or directing them.
Right.
And I was pre-selling them to UK and Germany and France, and it wasn't always the same for every movie, but and they were paying pretty low funds at first for lifetime rights, and then I started kind of pulling back the rights to be maybe like 20 years or 10 years, because I didn't want to give out lifetime in each one. I wanted them to buy some, be happy with the deal that they made, make some money off it, show them that it was viable for them, and then have them keep buying it. So, but the first movies were like killer deals. But one of the movies we did was I Spit on Your Corpse, I Piss on Your Grave, and they, it was France was like, we'll buy into it, but you need to add a scene with they're like, they were very apologetic by asking this, but I think the scene was the guy had to take a shit on the floor as he's being tortured, and then the girl had to like rub his face into it, and he's like, "Don't think I'm weird. This stuff's real popular in France." So we had to put that in to get them coming as a distributor. And back in those days,
No wonder my movies don't sell overseas.
like the VHS and even the early DVD days for a bit there. And I think it's cooled off from what I can tell, but the fetish movies seem to be getting crazier and crazier. Like the Wave movies were very fetish. Wave was a production company, and anytime I added a Wave movie to my website, the b-movie.com website, it would sell like crazy, and people started having more and more specific things. But there was like erotic vampire titles were real hot for a while. Then it was like Strangle and sleeping girls being carried. So it became very fetish and less story driven, and I wasn't really interested. I didn't mind wholesaling and reselling, but I wanted movies that had stories still, but I didn't care if they had the extreme gore. But that was the sort of stuff we ran into. It wasn't just France, but where France was a little more extreme with their request, there was other people who asked for stuff. Like one guy I remember used to come around to the shows and be like, "Do you have any videos with girls?" This old guy looked like the nicest grandfather ever, and with girls getting shot in the stomach. And he would tell everyone like, "I'm not weird, I swear, I'm not a crazy psycho or something. I just like this, I feel like that's gone away with the conventions, going away. I don't hear that anymore.
And
There's
jail
not
time.
the erotic memory. He could have finally done it.
What was the window of opportunity that distributors would ask for this? Because everything's cyclic, and there's always a window where it's hot and it's not.
It depended. It did. Almost all of it did eventually dry up. Like I said, I mentioned the erotic vampire movies. They were hot for so long, and couldn't get my hands on enough. Like erotic or lesbian vampire movies, and I know you saw that too, because we like Vampire Centerfolds, Vampire Conspiracy were hot sellers. He released Carmilla, and then I think because I got away from it from doing the website for a while. By the time I came back to it, it was dead. But there was like set guys who bought every erotic vampire movie. I was even going to do this erotic vampire movie with all their names in it. It was going to be like Vampire Fantasy Island, and all my best buyers of the erotic vampire movies were going to be characters in there. I wish I could remember their names, because they had all these great names and stuff like that. We had a little tattoo guy who had one of the guys' names and stuff, and but that was I don't know, because I haven't seen any signs of erotic vampire movies coming back, and maybe Twilight kind of killed the vampire genre completely.
Okay, so Ron, you sort of answered this a little bit, but like based off those like special fetish requests, like what were the craziest things that people have asked you for, or like even with Draculina, like did anyone ever send you like fan mail being like asking for weird stuff? And so what was the creepiest thing on that front? And then how many units do you sell and stuff like that? I mean, is it even worth it? I mean.
It can be. I'll cover that in a second. When I'm doing tech support, I don't want anything of being rude, but I'm actually talking to the promoter who's asking me questions at the same time. So I'll let Hugh cover that, and I'll come back and make sure I answer both part of those, because they'll be interesting.
Well, I sold everything through Draculina. I hooked up with a place called Dead On out of Las Vegas, and they had all these really weird titles. It was basically like strangulation and aliens attacking women, and it was just everything. And I sold the crap out of those things. I mean, I got the masters and I'd split the money with them, and we'd just sell them constantly. I had like 50 titles, and people were constantly, well, Gary Levinson, I don't know if you know him, he was like a producer for Cannibal Hookers, and he was actually in Cannibal Hookers.
Hell Roller too, didn't he do that?
Yeah, he was in Hell Roller too, and he actually got thrown in prison. I don't know what he did. Well, like one of his requests was somebody wanted to see a really hairy woman beat up a guy, So he took his girlfriend and glued hair all over, and she beat him up. And he got thrown in prison, and he didn't do anything bad. He had an underage person. I mean, he wasn't nude or anything, but they was involved in something that, and he ran to Mexico, and they caught him, and they put him in prison. He got out. He's back in Hollywood somewhere now, but he's actually a nice guy, but he really capitalized on the VHS of people wanting weird stuff, because he made anything you requested, he would make it, and it was just stupid stuff. Most of it was stupid, people with bare feet stepping on stuff, it's just weird stuff like that.
I guess I can't really comment too much on no request for hairy feet stomping on something.
I remember getting some requests, but I wasn't really out to make those types of movies. I'll make a request later. But I did have a guy who came to me and he was telling me how he had gone into it even to a deeper level. He was a photographer, and he worked at a girls' college of all things. And I always remember he kind of had he had brown furry teeth. I don't know why, but he came to me and said, a lot of people don't know I produced these two shorts. It was girls shrinking or getting super large and ripping out of their clothes was hot. And girls transforming into werewolves or werecats was also hot. So he said we can pre-sell these and make a lot of money off them and then make them. So I was like, yeah, sure, head it up, let's do it. And he even got this girl, one of the girls in it became is a big porn star now, I think, too. She'd been totally done over and stuff. But we made these two shorts, which I forget, somewhere along the line, he became basically MIA, and I had to end up doing most of the work on it that he was supposed to do, because I really wanted to be hands off on it, but I was glad to make the money, And so I ended up having to do the digital effects of myself, which weren't actually too hard. We shot them in green screen. I was just enlarging and stuff like that. But yeah, the girls had to rip out and they had to shrink down. We had a laser gun in it and stuff. They had to get shot by the laser gun.
What about all the Wave videos? The Wave production?
Yeah, Wave I touched on.
I mean, that guy, all he did was make women
He
in
made
quicksand.
custom ones. People would pay him money in advance. And those two shorts were paid in advance, and I made good money off them and stuff like that. It was funny because the guy came back and I told him, I think he was complaining that I had done it without him and threatening to take it back. And I said, you better not be selling these anywhere because you didn't put any work into it. You didn't finish your job. And he was paid for his work. But that was the only time I ventured into making movies, that were specifically asked for with content. But his whole business at Wave was to make movies that were based. People would write the scripts for him, then give him the money. They would even pick amongst his actresses that he had, and he would make these movies and deliver them to them. And then he would have the rights to continue selling them. And so he has a pretty big library. I mean, he's got 200 movies, I think, something like that, you might know, because you probably collect the Wave stuff?
Yeah, he's still in business.
Yeah, I know, he still does sell. He's gone over to DVD on a lot of them, but
He was a
I
college
actually,
professor.
contacted him and tried to get VHS.
you had a movie made?
Yeah.
What was your fetish?
Please share it with us so we can exploit it.
He says he has no means to produce VHS anymore. So.
Oh, you won't even do the VHS
VHS,
stuff? His stuff was hot. When I started b-movie.com, I had gone out to Ohio for a few years, came out of college, went out to Ohio after shooting a little bit in Syracuse to work on Sandman with Tempe. And then I came back and I lived home for the first year and stuff, and I made Vicious Sweet at that time. And so I just moved out of the house and got an apartment. I wasn't quite sure I was going to pay for everything. I was doing distribution, but it was only a few years in. It wasn't, killer, but it, to have hits and then misses and stuff. And so I started the site. Literally the month I moved out, I added the Wave stuff to it. The Wave stuff sold so fast. It basically paid for me to live, I got out set in the apartment. I mean, the website at one point was making almost $100K a year. It was crazy how well it was selling, and a lot of it was the Wave stuff.
Yeah, I had a whole page in every issue, every magazine I put out with Wave stuff, and it would just sell like insane. It was the best seller I had.
And I just usually have them drop ship, which was even easier. So it was very easy to deal with Gary and stuff. He's very reliable. Some guys I would list their stuff, And there was other little small like fetish type companies and stuff. They always dry up. It was like Shelby, I think, from Dark Fantasies out in Las Vegas. He would disappear for periods of time. And I'd hear different stories, like he was killed, he was arrested, he was,
Factory 2000.
yeah, well, Factory 2, that's EI, isn't it now, or,
Well, yeah.
or part of EI?
William Hellfire.
Yeah. He's still around though. Did they go away and come back?
No, he's done with that. He's still
Oh.
directing, but
Was he doing made for hire type extreme horror
in
movies?
the beginning they were basically like wave movies, but with young, sort of. It was like hipster wave.
Yeah. I think one of his things was he had Misty mundane thing,
Eventually, yeah.
and she had a very young look, so that was a fetish thing that maybe go too far.
Other questions?
Other questions? So do you guys find when I go out and try to make something more extreme, and I've done some gorier stuff, but most of my earlier stuff has been psychological. Are you finding issues like with casting and locations? Like in Clay, I had a very young girl sharing a kiss with an older man, 10-year-old with 55. Very innocent, sort of peck and stuff. But it was very difficult to cast this and explain this and explain how it wasn't meant to be sleazy. And of course at the premiere, like the theater erupted. I thought they were gonna lynch me and stuff. Have you found issues with anywhere along the line, finding a location, finding the actors, selling it, showing it?
The biggest issue you have is when the cops show up and you have to explain to them it's just a movie. They understand that they see cameras and naked girls and blood, and they don't believe you. They think, okay, this is a movie, but what kind and how old are these
The
girls?
Snuff film.
So you have to be. You have to be careful and use some common sense when you do this stuff. But anyone could misinterpret what you're doing because they see it from the outside. So you really do have to. You can't smear blood all over a girl and tell her to run down Main Street and then expect not to get in trouble for something.
Well, obviously I made Gorotica, so I had no common sense. So the main lead was naked through the whole movie because he gets killed, and then he is going to be sold to a guy with AIDS because he can't find anyone to make love to. So the girl is screwing him the whole time until she gets rid of him, and the other guy's trying to get him because he swallowed a diamond in the beginning of the movie, and that's what they went to steal, a diamond. He's got the diamond in his stomach, so he figures, well, I'm going to cut the diamond out of his stomach. So he has this girl hold on to him while she sells him to a guy with AIDS. So it's kind of hard to find people to play parts like that. And originally it was called Wake the Dead, and this guy from Memphis is an artist. He said, man, I loved your Gorgasm movie. He goes, you ever need one? I got people. So we went down there, but unfortunately the guy that was going to play the lead backed out a week beforehand. And the guy that took that, he ended up being much better at it, I had to pay him $100. Because the other guy was going to do it for free. He goes, I got to get paid to do this. And then he got so into it one night, after the first night after he got killed, he was in the bathroom for like an hour. And I'm like, what the hell is he doing? He shaved his whole body while he was in the bathroom. That's why he's completely hairless. And then the girl shaves him into he's got a mohawk.
Wait,
then.
did you wrote that in because of that? That wasn't originally.
No, I didn't. There's things in that movie that happened just because these people were weird. Like the mohawk. And the nipple piercing. As much as I like gory movies, I hate real gore. If somebody cut themselves here, I'd probably pass out because I don't like real blood. But he wanted to have his nipple pierced, and I didn't know why. And they said, "Oh, this will be really cool," because I guess he was trying to upsell his. He's dead. He wants to do something to get noticed. And so I said, "Fine." And I set the camera up. A really tight shot, and I left the room. I couldn't watch it. And she took all she did was ice him up beforehand. That was real. The piercing of a safety pin through that guy's nipple was real in that movie. So it's kind of creepy, but then I actually had to watch it when I edited it, but still.
Yeah, I don't like real gore. I don't like the Faces of the Death movies and stuff. I don't want to see, I know a lot of that's fake, but anything that's sort of like real news reports, I don't want to really see people suffering, but I can enjoy a good gore movie.
There was a wave of Italian cannibal movies where they would film, natives living their life normally, but we don't, it's not every day we see someone pull a turtle out of a river and chop it to pieces. That's everyday life to them, but to us that's really, disgusting. But they made a slew of those movies.
Yep.
They're endless, but they They all featured the same thing. Fake mutilation,
Well, there's
but
a
real
whole
animal killing.
Mondo genre. I mean, there was that people, there was a fascination, at least in America, of, things we consider sort of barbaric as rituals in other countries. That was the selling point. But yeah, you're right. They didn't think anything of it to eat like monkey brains or something. That was good to them, and it revolted us. Is there any questions yet at this point? We can go for a while. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm like you guys in the fact that like if it's real, I can't do it, but I'll totally see anything if I know like it's fake. So have you guys ever encountered a movie where you kind of didn't know the background of it, so you're watching it and you're thinking, is this real? I can't watch this anymore. If this is real, just tell me I can't watch.
I mean, early on, Todd and I had talked about this on his radio station a few weeks ago, or like a week ago and stuff. Early on when we were shooting, low budget shot and video, there was a lot of like rumors that there was a real snuff film out there somewhere, and people were always looking for it, and big fascination with it. And after a few years of working low budget and looking for these types of movies to see if there really was one, pretty much found out that there wasn't. As far as we know, there's not a real snuff film that's been released and stuff.
There's that movie
could
called
be
Snuffed, right? And they just took a movie and they cut a piece into it to make it look like it was real.
Yeah,
At the end of it, but it wasn't real.
Yeah, people wondered if it was real and stuff. I think almost in a sense, what killed the idea that there could be a real snuff movie out there was Blair Witch Project, because it showed that okay, you can make a movie that looks like a snuff movie. It's not real. I remember people were debating, is it real and stuff, and then the reports were out that it wasn't real, and it's pretty much common knowledge. But even seeing that movie in the theater, I think the first week we watched the whole thing. We get up and there's these teenage girls in front of us, and they're saying it's not real, but I think it really is real. Like they still believed it and they wanted to believe. But shortly after that, I'd never really heard anything about snuff films anymore. I mean, you could argue Faces of Death in a sense are like snuff films because they are intercutting real footage of people getting killed. But has anyone gone out there and shot a movie, with someone with the intention of killing somebody in it? I don't think there's been anything that's gotten out there that people don't realize someone is actually dead in. So no, I've never come across anything and no longer think there is. But what about you guys?
I remember the first time I saw Jungle Holocaust. It was pretty disgusting. It still is disgusting. I can't sit through it, but it's just there's something about that movie. Just the fact that there are real animal killings in it, and it's done in this documentary style, which really fools you into believing it's real. And then when they get to the natives killing the people, you're pretty hooked. I mean, that isn't real, but the Italian government dragged those filmmakers into court and were ready to throw them in prison because they thought it was real, and they actually had to bring like props, and the makeup artists had to show up.
I think that
in their
Cannibal
defense.
Holocaust too.
Cannibal Holocaust, one of those movies, and it, you could see where someone would think that was real just because of the grittiness of it, and they did a great job selling it, but it's a pretty tough movie to watch. Really
There
tough.
was nothing like Cannibal Holocaust at the time. It tends to be more common with the extreme horror movies today, so people I think tend to question it less. But at that particular point in the 70s, it was so much more taboo, unheard of, and insane to even consider.
I think that's why Gary Levinson got thrown in jail, is because they thought that he was doing which I don't know why, because they would look pretty fake. But yeah, I would have to agree, Cannibal Holocaust is one of the most graphic movies.
I know Stanzi, after one of the movies, I think that he made for me specifically, I think, he had a bunch of like props in a dumpster behind his house, and someone called the cops, said he had a dead body in his dumpster, and but he didn't get arrested as far as I know. But I mean, it's always a possibility if you're shooting these movies and you're shooting something pretty gory, and someone's going to come along, no matter how many people you've told, and be like, someone's getting killed in the back parking lot of this of this bar, and there's all these spotlights and cameras on him at the same time, but I think he's really getting killed, so let's send the cops out there to investigate it,
A lot of leads in Donald Farmer's movies died after he made a movie.
Because of the movie?
I don't know, but there was like 3 of them.
I know an actress who was here last year, who I won't say by name because I don't know how much she wants as public knowledge, but she got badly hurt on a film set, got her hand cut really bad, and still recovering from it. Yeah. So I mean, some bad things can definitely happen on set.
I was cleaning out some of my special effects props, and we had this neighbor dog that would always get into your trash, always. And we'd call them and say, look, tie your dog up on the day we have to put our garbage out. And they would never do it. And I threw the severed arm out. They had a sleeve attached to it. And the dog came over, got in the garbage, liked the syrup on the hand, and took it over to their house and dropped it on their porch and was licking it off as their girls came out to get on the school bus. And sure enough, they called and said, we got a real problem here. And I said, what's the problem, other than your dog? They said, well, your dog brought one of your fake props over here and it terrified my girls. I said, then tie your dog up. And that was the end of the story. And I felt bad for the kids, but this went on for weeks and weeks, so you got to be careful what you throw out.
I'm surprised you're throwing the prop out. Those are precious.
No, it was just in the way, so.
Your props are worth a lot of money now. You shouldn't throw them out. Other questions? Somebody's got to have a question. How about you guys? Anything we haven't covered yet in starting underground movies? I mean, my biggest thing was finding out if you'd had issues. I would have thought, Hugh, you had a lot of issues trying to cast Gorotica and Gore Whore, especially because, I mean, the content there is very extreme. But then it's funny, you find like people who are part of a different sort of underground movement, maybe, you know, they're goth or whatever, you know, and they will volunteer for it in like droves and stuff. I remember getting these movies, as a side note, if we ever want to get back to it, where one of the fetishes was, it was a band that played, but they would throw up on girls as they played. They would swallow this liquid and they'd throw up like green, I think, on them and stuff like that. And there was this whole, and there still is, people, there's a guy I think who's on Stern sometimes who wants girls to throw up on him. So there's another fetish, underground, extreme thing for you. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Is that, you said that's making a comeback? I really wasn't aware of that.
The throw up thing?
Any of it, really.
I don't know if it's coming back. The only reason I've heard about the throwing up thing is because of the guy who pops on
The extreme gore, though, like you had mentioned.
It is in the underground. I mean, it seems to be selling really fast. And there's one filmmaker out there, I might be saying his name wrong, Adam Albright, is that how you say his name? Do you know? And he did like the Cemetery and Crossbear and stuff. And I think it was the Cemetery, was he pre-selling his DVDs for it? Or the Sadist, I think it was the Sadist. And he put the DVD up for sale to raise funds. I'm pretty sure if I followed this correctly, because it then processes so much different info every day. So if it's not SRS related, I don't process it fully sometimes. But he sold, I think, the DVD on eBay, either the 1 or the 666 for like $2,000 for raising money towards his movie. So, but he's an extreme horror filmmaker his stuff is selling very fast, and his titles are very hot. And there's other underground filmmakers like him who do extreme gore. I mean, I do best, it seems like, with the Tim Ritter stuff, and his is older extreme gore in a lot of cases, but those are the titles, like, you know, when I do limited edition releases that sell very fast.
There's a company called August Underground, is that?
They're another one that's very hot. Toe tag stuff that seems to be very hot.
Yeah, with Gorotica, I had a hard time finding the female lead. Originally it was called Wake the Dead, and I sent the script out to people, and I would never hear back from them. They would act real interested, and I'd send them the script, and I'd never hear back from them. And that happened quite a bit. And then Donald Farmer was another filmmaker. He found Getty Chasem. He goes, I saw this girl in this live act, and she does this live show, and she sits naked in a box, and another girl sits on top of her, and fake menstruates all over her. I said, well, yeah, she'd probably do this movie then. So I talked to her, and we did the movie, and she was great. I mean, she's what's weird is she's a super nice person, and what I heard, she works at a Christian station now and edits movies for a Christian station. She has a family, and she's just a normal person, but at the time she was kind of crazy. But then I met the girl from Gore Whore, which that's kind of a big mistake, because I went to the premiere at Gorotica, and I got kind of drunk, and this girl was dancing around. I thought, wow, you're really good. And we talked, and she's like, man, you'd be great in my next movie, Gore Whore. Well, I didn't know there's like a thing where you have a concave chest, and there's a name for it. That your chest is concaved, and I didn't know that, and which I guess it doesn't matter, but we did the first scene, and it was nude, and she took her clothes off, and her boobs were like cross-eyed, and it just kind of freaked me out. But then I started thinking about that. Well, actually, she's supposed to be a dead $10 hooker. That seems about right. So it worked out great. I mean, but she was a very strange person. I was really concerned for her because she didn't seem to know reality from fake, and I was constantly worried someone was gonna get hurt, because like one part I told her to throw something at somebody, and she literally threw it at him and hit him in the head, and after that, I was scared for her to do anything. She had a knife over her person. I had to lay down with the camera shooting up at a knife. I thought I was going to die. But she was very scary. I haven't talked to her since then.
You kind of got both extremes though. You have the actress who, you know, was basically playing the role, and then you had the actress who was the role, you know. And I tend to, I mean, if I write something that's a little more extreme, I want someone who can play the part, but will play it, you know, who's like a serious actor. And it's kind of tough to find someone to play like an extreme role who's not, say, already a little off balance, you know. So it's kind of like a fine line. You get lucky, you can find an actress who's going to be dedicated to the role and accept the content of it. You know. Have you had any casting issues with the roles you've tried to, like someone turning it down because of the content?
Not real. No, I don't. I never really have. But I've never, you know, done anything this. This is enlightening for me. So I'm kind of just taking all this in.
You star in your own movies a lot too, though. So.
Sometimes, yeah, when you have to. But yeah, you know, these guys make a good point. You know, other than auditioning at a mental asylum, which I guess you could try. But, yeah, you. I think you want someone that's probably in the middle of the road, because if they're skittish, they're obviously not going to give you what you want. But
yeah, you're making extreme horror movies.
if they're too
with
into
sane
it,
people.
then you might have some serious issues on set or you know, later. I don't know. I've never been down that road, but I assume as a director, it's a fine line that you must have to walk to keep that person in the perspective that you
You know,
want.
my biggest fear when making a movie is getting it done, because I'm afraid of losing like a key person and having to reshoot it. So we talked about this in one of the other panels, like not doing reshoots. We, you know, opposed to doing reshoots, trying to get the movie done quick with very limited time and money and stuff like that. So yeah, I need to cast sane people who I know are reliable and going to show up when they're supposed to show up and stuff like that. So, and it becomes difficult because some of the really extreme movies that tour like the film festival and stuff, especially like back in the 80s and late 70s and stuff, were they were extreme, but the people in them were definitely off balance and unhinged, and you know, guys who were in bands who were, you know, borderline suicidal, and some of them eventually killed themselves. Stuff where, you know, they were casting or videotaping their groupies and stuff like that, who were just out of their mind, you know. And so they'd make these really extreme movies that people were a fan of. I couldn't make those types of movies because unless I was part of that culture, one, I didn't quite get it and probably couldn't capture it properly, but I would be afraid to cast those people and not be able to finish the story.
I shot Gorgasm. I shot a movie called Dead Silence that it was horrible. I had to shoot with people local, and they would all call, "Oh, I can't make it today." And then it took like 6 months to shoot this thing that was a piece of shit. And then, so I thought when I did Gorgasm, I thought, well, me and this other guy got the money together, and we said, okay, we're going to fly everyone in, the main actors in, because I thought, well, once they come in here, what can they do? They can't go anywhere. They can't get anywhere unless I pick them up and take them there. So I thought, well, they're kind of captive, so I just kept them there for like 5 days, and we shot the whole thing, but it ended up being everyone loved it anyway, so everyone was like a big party for 5 days, and then I had to beat off all the locals because the girl had really big boobs that was in it, and everybody wanted to be in it then. And it was like, I had a line of people, I'm like, go away, you didn't want anything to do with this before, go away.
Yeah, I noticed that we were even talking recently where he was saying that all the people from Gorgasm come back for a sequel. I was actually kind of surprised by that because it's been how long since you shot Gorgasm? Like 20 years?
1990,
Wow.
so almost 25 years.
25 years later, it must have been a good experience if all your main characters at least are willing to come back and do a sequel.
I'm doing another business with Corvettes. I like part out of old Corvettes, and one of the guys that was in that came back to shoot a little video for me for that, and it was funny because he's like, oh yeah, it's like how that's all he talks about still is Gorgasm. It was funny.
You guys have any more questions?
Any advice for aspiring filmmakers?
You know, the best advice I think anyone could give an aspiring filmmaker is to just simply go out and do it. I meet lots of young people, and making a movie is hard work. It's fun, but it's a lot of hard work. And sometimes the biggest roadblock to getting a movie made could be the person that wants to make it, because they can talk themselves out of it. I would just recommend you go out and shoot with whatever you have. It may not be the best stuff, but go out and shoot something, put it together, do it again. Eventually, that's going to take you where you want to go. Is it frustrating? Is it defeating? At times it is, because you're facing insurmountable odds no matter what you try to do at the level that we're at. But just do it. I mean, it sounds simple, but it's rather complicated.
I don't know if they have the 48-hour film festival around here. I think they have it all over the United States. That's a lot of fun to do if you want to do something that's in 48 hours. They give you the idea what you're supposed to. I mean, they give you a prop, a character name, and then you have to pick the genre. You don't know what genre you're going to get till you get there. You have 48 hours to write, shoot, direct. It's only 5 minutes long, but it's a bitch. And I've done it for like 4 or 5 years. It's actually my daughter does it, and I do it with her, and it's a lot of fun. And you really learn a lot doing that. But yeah, I would suggest doing stuff like that too, because it's a lot of fun. I mean, you have to go shoot stuff. You can't. It's easy to get. You gotta find people that really want to do it, because most people think, yeah, I wanted to make a movie, and then they find out it's actual work, and they're like, oh, screw this. So it's difficult. You gotta find people that really want to do stuff.
I would have the same advice as Mark. Basically, get out there and shoot, and use the resources you have and shoot a lot. I had a guy who come to me years ago who wanted to have me produce a movie, me and Tim Ritter, and he wants to come outside and he wants to shoot us, and he had never shot with a camera at all, and he had all these super elaborate ideas and stuff. They were very cool ideas, but they were pretty epic. And I kept advising him, like, pick up a camera and go out there and shoot some stuff, because it's different when, this is back like in SVHS days, it's different when you shoot on an SVHS camera, VHS camera. It's not going to look the same as you think it's going to look as like with a film and stuff. So I didn't want to get on set with him with his epic ideas and try to shoot this movie with all his ideas and have him look through and see the first shots, just be like, wait, this doesn't look like a movie, So definitely get out there and shoot, just not only to get the experience and the training and be active and learning, but also so you can see what it looks like, how what you've envisioned actually what it comes out to be, and then what it takes to make it look like that. It's not as easy. You might see some epic shot like in an Alfred Hitchcock movie or something like that, and you'll find it's very difficult to pull that shot off in reality. Are you gonna add something to it?
I guess the other ingredient is passion. I mean, success in anything is dependent on how passionate you are about what you're doing, and that'll take you a long way too.
Other questions? Sure, Ben.
One thing I really love about movies in general, which was happening a lot when you guys were making movies, is stuff that's just so over the top that it just blows your mind. Like, and certainly with the Gore trilogy, Splatter Farm, stuff you've distributed like Bride of Frank and things of that nature. Is there any, that hasn't happened to me in a really long time, so is there any shocking an audience anymore, or am I just getting old?
I think it's definitely tougher, because you guys have been shocked so much that what haven't you seen, what else there's still not to see. That's why I try to lean more towards the story. I mean, you would touch on making sure a good story with it, because I think you can throw tons of gore out there, but if you don't have a story, like good characters that you really sort of like, get involved with and like and don't want to see die, then if you have some character you don't care about and you kill them off in an extreme way, you're not going to really care and be shocked by it so much.
I'm not even just gore, but like, I mean,
anything.
I was less shocked by the gore in Splatter Farm than just the complete insanity of the, or the Bride of Frank, which is just sort of like,
yeah, I think
the fact that like John Waters, like,
yeah. Well, I think people are more desensitized to it in this day and age. There's such an availability of you can Google something and find anything you want, like these fetish ideas they're talking about. There's probably websites that feature that. So there is no freak show like they used to have at the circus, where you paid a little extra money to see this weird stuff. It's not an exclusive club anymore.
This kind of goes back to the snuff films, where there's just been so much found footage movies and extreme gore scenes and the special effects that you can do, both physically on set and digitally, that you can pretty much do anything you want on camera if you have enough money and enough skill and stuff. So, it's just I think it's harder to shock people nowadays, and my best suggestion for shocking people nowadays is to make better scripts and better characters so that when they do die, I mean, for lack of a better example, Walking Dead I think is a good example. Because when you have they develop those characters a lot and you really like those characters, and then when they die, people get real upset about it. So that's a good example of maybe how to shock audiences nowadays. As opposed to, like I said, just making a super gory movie where, somebody you don't care about throughout the movie because they're obnoxious, or you just met them or something gets killed, and maybe not. Well, I've seen people get gutted a million times in movies at this point.
I think that was the whole reason I made Gorotica, is because at that time Necromantic was out. And I kept watching this and I kept thinking, there's no story. It's like, I didn't get into it at all. I thought, well, I can make a better movie than that about necrophiliacs. I don't know why anybody would think that, but I kept going back to Lovely Deadly, which was made in the 70s, and that was a shocking movie, I thought, especially for who was in it and what it was about. And so I came back and made that, and I just wanted to write a story and put the necrophilia in. I don't know, I thought it turned out pretty cool, but that's just me.
Other questions? I'm way out of here. 4:19. We got a few more minutes. Anything else you guys wanted to touch on?
I was earlier, if you Todd was talking about special effects. It's like now you can go to the computer and just like get whatever special effect you want. I used to sit in a room with different objects because I'd have to like make effects, for stabbing sounds or somebody getting their head squashed or something. I'd have melons, and I would have, and you got people walking down the hall. I'd walk down like things and time it up. It was a lot of fun. I love doing that. And now it's, I don't know. I think things become too easy. I don't know.
There is like a call for more, say, on-set effects and less digital effects that I've seen more and more. And I mean, J.J. Abrams kind of echoing that with like the new Star Wars. He's going back to the older, style of how Lucas did the first ones, as opposed to, how they did the trilogy, the later trilogy, the 1 through 3. So, you're seeing that even on a Hollywood level with that sort of call for on-set effect. People seem to really be into like the 80s horror movie style, the monsters and the suits or the props that are being like run by hand puppets or whatever. So I mean, there is a callback for it. Things do seem to cycle, definitely. Once something becomes popular, drops off for a while, and then some point later it comes back, maybe in a different form or an updated form or same exact form. Any other questions or anything else?
There's another thing is like with locations. I always had a hard time getting locations, even though I went to Memphis with the guy who said he had all the locations. He didn't always have them all. But there was like a spot where we wanted to use a lab in Gorotica for the necrophiliac. I thought would be cool. I mean, not the guy with the age, who thought it'd be cool if he worked in a blood bank. And the guy that was a cop in Gorotica actually worked at a blood bank. So he was supposed to try to get us where we could shoot there. And he said, oh, I got it where you can shoot there. He said, no, the problem is you only have an hour and you act like you're doing a documentary for AIDS. I'm like, how am I going to do that? I got a guy with a mohawk that's naked. So I really debated it for a long time, but I was afraid I was going to lose the day, so we didn't end up doing that. But unlike in Gore Whore, when we shot stuff, we needed a hospital room. So we literally walked around the hospital. I had my camera hidden under my coat. We walked through the two actors, and we looked for an empty room. We ran in and shot the scene and then ran out of the hospital. And no one caught us. And like I have a car wreck scene. I'm an action guy too. I love action. I wanted to wreck a car. And I never wrecked a car before. I don't know how to wreck a car. So we thought it was a really big drop off. So we rigged it up to the gas pedal somehow just to run it off there. And I ran off and went into the ditch. And it wasn't as great as I thought it was going to be, and we couldn't get it out of the ditch, so I'm like, I got other things to do. I had the title, and some kid was there, and he said, I go, you want a car? And I said, yeah, and I signed the title and gave it to him. He said, you get out of the ditch, here's your car, and then we left. And we were doing stuff like that through Gore Whore the whole time. I don't even remember where we got the beetle bug we hit and ran off the, and also in the graveyard, we shot there, and we had a naked girl in the graveyard. I mean, we had no permission to shoot any of this stuff. I had two guys on watch out looking for cars. Anybody comes, let me know, we'll stop. And I mean, she's stripping down with this giant black dildo thing that injects green goo. And I mean, it was fun, but it was like you're on the edge of your seat all the time. What's going to happen? I've never gotten arrested.
It's tough to ask permission from the cemetery person.
Amazing.
I mean, I will lie in a sense with the location about what I'm doing there. Like in Clay, he's supposed to be attacking this orphanage in like this sort of artsy slow-mo scene that I did, and it was actually the place we're shooting in the nuns used to use it as their apartments, basically right next to the church. So I had to describe this scene where I was like, hey, Clay's having a flashback to when he lived in the orphanage. That's all we're doing in there, and try to shoot it real quick before anyone came over and checked on us. And it wasn't like we had a lot of gore and blood in that scene or something like that, but we just had kids running around being scared and Clay grabbing them and doing different insert shots and stuff like that. So if someone had come in there with an obvious, we weren't really shooting what we wanted. But it's kind of like the scene in Ed Wood, where you just
Steal.
Yeah, you do. Things are just very guerrilla filmmaking. I will run into some places and get what I need, and other places, though, if I'm really worried about the shots, I will keep searching around until I find it, until I can have it as long as I need, and I will tell them maybe as much as I think I need them to know without getting in trouble if they do see more. I can always play down. Oh, I thought you knew that's what I was going for, But like with Miss Cannibal Holocaust, I didn't want to call it Miss Cannibal Holocaust, so I was calling it One, because it was harder to say, hey, I want to find this location for Miss Cannibal Holocaust. What I mean? And I'm working with this lady who works for the city and stuff, so I was like, I'm doing this movie called One, no worries about say turning somebody off just from the title of the movie.
That's like I shot this one movie called Dead Silence, like I said, and like I said, I got a thing about cars. I like to wreck cars, but I bought this car with the sole purpose of wrecking. It seems like when you have your own car, you wreck it, it's totaled out. But when you really want to wreck a car, it takes a lot of stuff to wreck a car. But I had a scene where this guy jumps on the hood and he takes an ice pick and he's going to ram it through the hood. And I'm really lucky no one ever got hurt in any of my movies, because I drew an X on top of not on the hood, on the roof of the car. I drew an X. I said, hit right here. And the girl I got inside, I said, move your head, make sure you don't get right here. And that was pretty much it. And I mean, he put the pick all the way through. And then she drives, and he's on the hood, and he hits a motorcycle, he slides off the hood. He actually cut himself in the windshield, but he was a trooper.
I mean, some guys get crazy with Doug Ulrich. I forget who his partner was on it and stuff, but he had him really get hit by a car for the movie, for the scene, because he wanted to do it. So, and I think he broke his collarbone or his arm or something doing it. I think he thought he was just gonna be okay, but he really got hurt off it. And it's I think it's Screen Kill is the movie where, if you guys ever picked that up, which was changed as Snuff Kill, I think, later by EI Cinema, where you can see the guy get hit by the car. He actually does break a bone in it. You're gonna add something, Mark? Sorry.
We just shot a picture, Triclops, and we had an overzealous actor, and we were shooting outside this real cave, and there was trees and all kinds of stuff, and he insisted he was going to jump over this log as he's running down this mossy hill, and I wasn't directing the scene, but I told the director, I said, I think this is a real bad idea. Just something about the whole thing just set me off, and he rehearsed it once. He was adamant he was going to do it. He did it once perfect. When we went to do the take, his foot got caught on the log and he flipped over and landed on his back, and we thought he was seriously hurt, seriously hurt. We were concerned. He knocked the wind out of himself is what it was, and he did cut the back of his head open, but he was okay after a couple minutes. But those are the moments where you just wish you'd listened to your gut instinct and said, no, you're not doing this. And he felt bad because he put us behind 3 hours before we bandaged him up and put him back in front of the camera. But something like that can really go sour, and that just solidified to me that after that I'm like, we'll use dummies or something, but I'm done with that. That was a scary moment.
Yeah, I mean, the worst thing could obviously happen is someone would really get hurt on your productions. We had a guy on Night of Something Strange who always went 120%, in all action fighting moments, always too far. And we would tell him, hey, why don't you take it easy? You don't have to go that crazy with it. It looks good on camera, And he's like, no, I just figure it's got to be that much. He had this one scene where he had to run at the car, and the guy doesn't know he's about to smash through the window and grab him. You can actually see it in the trailer. And he's come running up to the car, and the first take he basically runs full speed straight into the car, and the whole car shakes and stuff. We're like, hey, you don't have to go that hard. You can slow down. We're gonna cut before that The very next take, he does the same exact thing. He runs in, loud crack. This is a Mustang that they're renting. He breaks the mirror off the side of the car. So later they had to fix it and stuff and get it back to the rental without them ever knowing and stuff. But he just couldn't stop. Another scene, he's throwing around this actress named Nicola, and he had to like take her off the bed. And he like grabs her and he like, I won't give away, but he bites into her and then he throws her off against the wall. And the first take he did it pretty relaxed, but she fell. The second take, he threw her wicked hard and she's like, bam, she hit the wall and she fell down and then she held it for the take and everything, thank goodness, but she was like all black and blue later. So sometimes you just get that crazy guy on set who doesn't know you can reel it in and have it still look good.
Yeah. Or someone thinks it's just gonna look good, and they, we shot a scene for Halloween night, and this guy that played a part, he's drunk in front of the house, and he walks across the street, and we had a car come by and skid to a stop, and he just insisted we hit him with the car. I'm like, no, I'm not hitting you with the car, because I was driving the car to make sure someone else didn't decide to take him up on his idea. And after like 4 takes, all the guys are like, oh, come on, you're such a wuss, hit him with the car. I'm like, no. I mean, this guy obviously doesn't know what it's like to get hit with a car. He wouldn't be asking me to do it. I refused to do it. I said, it's my movie. I'm not hitting you with a car. I'm sorry. Go act in another movie where someone's willing to run you over, but it's not happening tonight. And
maybe that was his fetish.
it was just weird. People, they forget about the reality of doing some of this stuff because they get into it and they get excited. And then there's people egging them on. Your crew's like, yeah, hit him. He can take it. It's just a car. It's all fiberglass. I'm going 30 miles an hour. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, he saw the movie. He said, you should have hit me with the car. And at that point, I was really pissed off. I said, I would hit you with that car right now if we were shooting that scene.
Yeah, I think actors sometimes don't realize you can hide it with the angles, and you can zoom in and make it,
Oh yeah,
shallow depth
There was
of
a
field.
guy, David Williams, who made movies in New York. I shot a couple movies for him, and he had me in a movie, and it was the part where someone's supposed to be chasing me with a knife, and I said, I was going to roll across the floor and have him right behind me, hit him with a knife, and he wouldn't do that. I guess it was a good thing he talked me out, but I thought, you can do that. Just come chase me with a knife, it'll be great.
I get tired of it, I had a guy getting stabbed in the chest in clay, and it was styrofoam, but he was holding it on top of him. So I put like this really thick board that I double checked he couldn't stab through even accidentally to make sure when he stabbed me he didn't accidentally like slip and overpower him and stab him right through the chest. So I tend to lean towards the paranoid side, and nothing worse. I think someone really get hurt on your set. I mean, that would kill a production, money, budget-wise. Not to mention the fact that someone would get hurt. But I guess we're at 4:30, so we can wrap this up for the next panel to pop in here. So thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I have to echo what everyone here is saying, and just really add to that. Making a film is hard. I mean, we make movies for nothing. I'd like to see Michael Bay shoot a movie on our money. If you gave any one of us $200 million, we could make a movie just as good, but no one's going to. But the lead into that is the hardest thing for any of us is going to be to, as we did in the past, to find a way to stay in that field, to continue furthering that dream that we have that's driven us to where we're at right now. And it's survival, really. You find a way. We don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now. And 10 years ago, we never thought we'd all be sitting here at this table talking about what we are. So I'm a firm believer in there's no such thing as a problem, only a solution. So just keep looking ahead and just keep making movies. That's what you have to do. But have a business sense about it, and that's the tough part.